Okay, so yeah, obviously, Galal, you've got this fight, which is literally just around the corner now.
Yeah.
I wanted to start off by asking because obviously you're coming off that really strong performance against Sonny Edwards. So how's it kind of been since that fight, sort of from then up until now? What's your life sort of look like, in this period in your career?
Um, just same really, I got asked that the other day. I think people expected things to change and, you're gonna become, a big name in the division, but for me it's just the same. It was a win against someone who people or more people knew, especially in our divisions. It's hard to get a bigger name. It's just it is what it is. With small guys, less people interested. But Sonny was one of the bigger names. But yeah, other than that, I didn't really get much. I didn't become world champion. Yeah, so for me, it's just a win. Nice to get a win over a former rival. But other than that, I'm looking forward to being a world champion.
Yeah, how have you sort of enjoyed the downtime, I guess? Because I'm guessing obviously you've been keeping in the gym, you've been staying in shape, but obviously you're quite active, especially ahead of that Sonny Edwards fight, and you've had a bit of time to sort of rest. How's that been for you?
Yeah, you know what? It's been what would be like 7 months by the time I step in the ring next week. Nearly 7 months. So it's gone really quick, to be fair. I'm always in the gym. I had a little break afterwards. I'm probably due to myself just always wanted to be in the gym. I probably should take more rest. But yeah, I had a bit of time off. I had a month off, and then yeah, I was straight back in the gym. So for 5 6 months, I've been ticking over, seeing what's next. And yeah, Francisco Rodriguez is next week.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one with fighters because, like you say there, you're sort of always wanting to be in and around the sport, in the gym and stuff. Do you have
Yeah.
anything sort of in your life, outside of boxing that offers a bit of a distraction or a bit of respite away from that? Or is it just fully, about the training?
Yeah, it's all about the training, really. Obviously, I've got a daughter, so I spend time with my daughter. I'm always just relaxing, really. Yeah, boxing's my life. You know, I'm not one of them guys that are always in the limelight either. So I'm not always, at shows and trying to get myself out there. I'm either in the gym or just relaxing at home with my family. But yeah, it's been nice to have a bit of time off. But like I said before, I'm just getting ready to be in these big fights. It's gonna get harder and harder. Um, so I need to make sure I'm ready. So I can't really take my foot off the gas and you know, kind of go enjoy my life and go on holidays and do these kind of things. I've got to keep my head straight and make sure I'm ready when these big fights come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we'll come on to sort of what's next in a minute, but I did want to get a quick word on Lomachenko. Obviously, we saw him announce his retirement, and I know initially, a lot of people were sort of tempted to make those comparisons with you kind of being accelerated, at the start of your career up
Yeah,
until to world level, which is where you are now. And I know you've sort of rejected some of those comparisons in the past,
yeah.
but how much would you say Lomachenko has been a source of inspiration for you, especially as an amateur, uh, like in the amateur ranks? Because obviously with his retirement, you've heard how much of an impact he sort of had on the amateur ranks, especially. So how much of a inspiration would you say that he was for you?
Yeah, huge. Like people don't really know, but I remember starting boxing when I was like 17, 18. And Lemachenko was the only fight I used to watch. And I knew of him because of my brothers. They were amateurs. They were like top amateurs, Cal and Gamal. You know, they were around that scene. And I remember Lemachenko being around when they were around, the 2012 Olympics. So I'd seen him in the 2008 Olympics when he won the gold there. And then he won them again in 2012. And I just watched, he'd box in the Worlds in 2011. I'd watched him there, um, all his WSBs. So I just constantly just watch him, just study him. And I remember being told by my brother, he used to say, you need to stop watching Lomachenko. You can't, it's going to be hard to be able to do what he does. And I was like, yeah, but if I can do the littlest little bit what he can do, then I'll be good because he's just exceptional. And if I said if I can do half of what he's done, then I'll be happy. And that turned out I became Olympic champion. I didn't become two-time Olympic champion, but I'm happy with just the one. So yeah, again, back to your question, he was a huge inspiration for myself. Um, and there's one thing we've got in common, and that's the Olympic gold medal. But yeah, I'm not as good as him. Nowhere near as good as him. You know, there was a few comparisons at the start, but Eddie's saying he's gonna fast track me like Lomachenko. But yeah, I'm probably not. I'm nowhere near as good enough. But we've got the Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, no, I understand you sort of not welcoming those kind of comparisons, but in terms of your style and that kind of counter punching off the front foot and like some of your footwork as well, like how much have you sort of, because you mentioned studying Lomachenko, how much of his style have you sort of incorporated into your own style, would you say?
Well, most of it, but you probably won't be able to see it. People will be able to see it. I wish I could box like him. But he's helped me loads. I used to literally, I used to watch him non-stop when as a kid coming up. Like I say, as a kid, as an 18-year-old kid coming up, I used to just watch him on my laptop, watch his fights in the Olympics, and hoping one day I could do the things he could do. But I took if only even if I've took a little bit of what he's got, it's helped me become the fighter I am. So yeah, I'm indebted to Lemachenko because he's just yeah he was a legend and he made me love boxing a little bit more as well.
Well, that's good to hear. And obviously, yeah, in terms of what you did as an amateur and what you achieved, that you kind of record and your accolades speak for themselves. But I did want to ask with obviously you hear about sort of decorated amateurs, how much they get to travel around the world, and obviously that being quite a benefit for them and a great experience. And obviously with you, I was having a look through your amateur fights, and you really did sort of see each
Yeah,
corner of the world, it seemed.
yeah.
What was, the sort of most memorable experience or your favorite experience in terms of the territory that you saw, competing on away soil?
You know what? I've seen the best place in the world. I was speaking about it the other day to my brothers. I boxed in. I've been to Rio de Janeiro twice, Brazil. Obviously I went to Tokyo, been to America countless times. Australia was unbelievable for the Commonwealth Games. Um, and not even these huge name countries like the Americas, the Australias, the Tokyos, even the places like that I didn't enjoy at the time, like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. These European countries at the time I was thinking I hate it here, but looking back now, they were the best times. And if I was gonna say which is my favorite, I'd probably say the Gold Coast in Australia. In 2018, we had the Commonwealth Games there. It was like the boys, me, Fraser, Clark, Ben Whitaker, Chev, Pete McGrail, Pat McCormack, Luke McCormack, all them boys, and we had the best time there. But yeah, I've been lucky to travel the world. I could retire from boxing today and say, you know what, I've had a wicked time. Just like I said, Tokyo, Brazil, America, Australia, um, and people don't get to do that. So yeah, I'm blessed, and I can only just say thanks to GB Boxing. You know, the the people who play the lottery, obviously they get us up there. The UK sport and things like that. If it weren't for these people, we wouldn't be able to go travel the world.
Yeah, you mentioned GB boxing there. Obviously, we kind of hear we don't see, what goes on behind the scenes, but we kind of hear whispers about, being involved in that GB setup is very demanding, both
Yeah.
physically and mentally. For you, what sort of a mindset did it take for you to not only kind of find comfort in that environment, but also, go on to achieve what you achieved?
Yeah, it's hard, I was saying it long ago as well. Again, you're always competing. You're up there and you've got three, four lads your weight and it's competition. Like, yeah, you're mates, but you're competing with me, you want to take my spot. So it's just your life is just constantly filled with just competition. Every week you're sparring someone else your weight. You're running on the track with someone else your weight. You're doing weights, trying to beat the other guy your weight. And it is quite, I want to say stressful, but it's non-stop. But for me, I worked before I got into the GB team. So I worked in a factory for years and I hated it. So me being able to go to GB and box for a living and travel the world, it was fun. I thought, I can't believe I'm getting paid to box. I'm going to America, I'm going here, I'm going there. And I just thought it's a lot better than working. For me anyway, I did enjoy my job. So it was easy for me. I think it was easy for me. I think if you started boxing and you never worked a day in your life at all, you know. So some people they weren't really built for it, or they didn't enjoy it. But it's not for everyone. It was for me. It worked out, but maybe in another lifetime it wouldn't have worked out for me. But in this one it did.
Yeah, that's interesting you say about working in a factory. I didn't actually know that. What sort of factory was it? And yeah, well,
It was at the Land Rover factory in Solihull. I worked there for like 3 years, so I was full time for 3 years. And then I got into the GB team. And yeah, I had to kind of pick what I wanted to do. Um, but the money weren't so great, you know, when you first got in GB, the money's not great, you know, you're part time. And I was making a decent wage, working full time. So I had to kind of pick and take a big loss in earnings. But I thought I'd take the risk and yeah, it paid off.
yeah, well, obviously it did pay off, but I suppose that moment in your life, it was a big risk. But in terms of making those sacrifices, I think, that's what is expected of a lot of fighters. I mean,
Yeah.
what did it take for you to make that sacrifice at the time? Because you mentioned your love for boxing and how much you wanted to kind of build that legacy in the sport. At the time, obviously, with you kind of putting that over financial earnings, what did it take for you to kind of make that sacrifice yourself?
I just thought, you know what, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. I remember getting the letter for GB boxing and I thought, okay, I'm going to take a big hit in money here. A big hit, because obviously again I was full time, and then it's going to relatively low money. And I just thought it's going to be tough, you know, taking that loss. You know, I was work, so I was I had my own apartment, so you know I had to pay for that. And it was just a nightmare having to, you know, decide what I wanted to do. But I just thought, you know, what, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. I can't say no. Um, and yeah, I just thought I'd take the risk, and yeah, it paid off. Thank
Yeah,
God.
cool. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, yeah, in terms of that last performance against Sonny Edwards, obviously we've sort of mentioned it briefly, but obviously with you putting in such a dominant performance and winning in the fashion that you did, I remember you saying that you expected to beat him in that kind of fashion, but for you to actually go out on the night and do it, how
Yeah.
much confidence has that sort of given you moving forward?
Um, you know what? Just to say, I felt the same as before. Um, Sonny's a good fighter, but I think, yeah, I just think I was just better than him, and I think, you know, people tried to paint the picture of you weren't the same, but I'd sparred Sonny 3 years prior, before my professional debut, and I knew that, yeah, it was gonna turn out that way. But he's a good fighter. Sonny was a former world champion. He was number one in Ring Magazine ranked. He was, you know, one of the most skillful boxers in Britain and everyone else always. But yeah, I was just better on that night. But again, I didn't really get much from it. You know, I didn't really get much from it. I didn't become world champion. Yeah, obviously I got paid to fight, and it was good publicity for myself. But I just want to be world champion. That's the main thing. If I'm not world champion, then it kind of don't really matter. That's why these fights are just steps to becoming world champion, and you know they were all good fighters. But yeah, yeah, world champions on.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned certain comments, I guess, in the build up. A lot of people picking Sonny Edwards prior to the fight. How much sweeter, I guess, did that kind of make the victory for you to prove the doubt is wrong? Like, is that something that you sort of like to do in terms of being in that underdog position and then almost exceeding people's expectations?
Yeah, definitely. It's nice. You know, I'm not a kind of. I'm not like a sore winner as well, like where I like to throw it in people's faces and say, "Ah, I told you so." It's sport and it people are gonna have their opinion and that's fine. But the only thing with me, which was a bit annoying, was afterwards. He's not the same, and this and that, and they try and take the credit away from you. But that's just again, it's just sport, and it's boxing. It's I suppose if I don't do nothing in boxing afterwards, then people will say, "Yeah, it was just that one fight. It really wasn't the same." But if I go on and have a great career, then people will say, "Oh, you know what? It was just better." But again, that's just a little part of my career. I'm hoping I could do plenty more. So that's not the highlight of my career. But yeah, it was a great win. Sonny's a good fighter. We get along, and he's retired now, so I'm sure he's enjoying life.
Yeah. Well, obviously you mentioned the world title, which is, firmly on your radar, and it seems like this next fight is just another step towards that.
Yeah,
Obviously, you've got Francisco Rodriguez Jr. as your opponent, and I've seen a few of his fights. He does bring that kind of typical all action Mexican style, relentless, a lot of pressure, high
yeah.
volume. You've obviously in your pro fights, you face quite a few of these sort of Mexican and South American style fighters. How much do you feel like that experience has prepared you for this next fight?
Yeah, definitely. Rodriguez is probably the best fighter that I'm going to face as of yet. Um, people say, "Oh, Sonny was probably the best one," but I think the Sonny fights they're easier. These are more physically grueling fights. Well, I hope it's not next week, but I like to think it will be. He's a good fighter. He's fought the likes of Nakatani, Ioka. He's not been overawed in them fights. He fought Chocolatito like 12 years ago, Roman Gonzalez. So
Mm.
he's been around for a long time, and he's my age. So you'd think he was when he fought in his 40s, but he was fighting Chocolatitos when I first started amateur boxing. So it shows that he's got a lot of experience, and he's a very good fighter. And these Mexicans, they come for it. They come to fight. He throws a lot, like you said. They don't give in. But he's coming to Birmingham, my city, where I'm from. He's coming down to my weight now, flyweight. Um, and he's got to be better than me, which I can't see it, but he's a good fighter, and we'll see next Saturday.
You mentioned with, fighting these Mexicans, it often sort of lends itself to a more physically grueling fight. With you, obviously, you mentioned, a fighter like Sonny Edwards is sort of more tailor-made for you, I guess.
Yeah.
You could beat him in comfortable fashion. With these fights against, people like Francisco Rodriguez, are you mindful of, I guess, some of the more shots that you're taking in these fights? And I guess the punishment is that sort of something that you are mindful of, in your career moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, a fighter like Rodriguez is a fighter who really wants to hit you and hit you as many times as he can. So you're probably going to take more shots, especially with my style as well. I like to throw a lot too. So it's acceptable to be hit more. A fighter like Sonny Edwards is a boxer. He's going to look to pot shot you. Doesn't carry much power, um, but can win with skill instead of relentlessness, like someone like Rodriguez. So this going to be more physically grueling. Like I said earlier, I hope it's not the case next week because I don't really want to be in a lot of them fights. But if I'm gonna, on the top of my head, if I'm gonna say which fight it's gonna be, it's gonna be it's gonna be more physical fight than a technical fight. But I've got to be smart as well. I can fight. So I don't really think, "Oh, I'm gonna go into the fight and do this. This is a game plan." I just think of it on the day and go with it on the spot. So I need a few plans. If plan A ain't working, I'll go to plan B and plan C. But that's the thing with me. I can do a few things. Rodriguez can only do one thing. Um, so, and I was saying the other day as well, it's great that I'm fighting these Mexicans. To be a top flyweight or super flyweight in these low weight divisions, you have to be fighting top Mexicans, top Japanese fighters, the from them parts of the world, and I think I'm doing that, or I will do that, because once I beat Rodriguez, then I'll go on to fight Kenshiro, so be a Mexican then a Japanese. So there's not many British fighters that do that.
Yeah, I'll come on to Kenshiro in a minute, but I did want to ask with fights like these where you are almost expecting to have to go into the trenches at times.
Yeah.
How do you kind of get yourself mentally prepared for that? Because obviously you come across like quite a chilled out guy outside of the ring, but then I'm guessing, as you head into that ring, that you've got to sort of flick a switch of some sort that takes you into, that sort of mindset where you are ready for whatever comes your way. What does that process sort of look like for you from a mental standpoint?
Um, for me, it's just another fight. When you get into the fight, you're almost like, for me anyway. I'm I've trained for that. I've trained not just for this camp, but for years, mentally, physically. I'm ready for either an easy fight or a hard fight. Hopefully, it's an easier fight. Um, but I'm always ready for a hard fight. I haven't had many, especially as a pro. Um, but I'll just do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's where you find out where you're at and who you are in them hard fights. Again, like I said, I ain't really been in them. I don't really want to be in them. Um, but it will show me as well what I'm made of. But will you be able to keep up with me next week? I don't know. We'll see. But it's interesting for you. I'm interested as much as other people to see how he'll react, how I'll react. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting fight, and obviously, like you mentioned there, Kenshiro Teraji, the WBC champ, he's firmly on your mind at the minute, and yeah, I guess for you, is that fight, from your perspective, is that definitely next? Like, would you sort of settle for nothing less than a world title fight?
You know what? Well, I can imagine it's next because it's been ordered. Um, but also, I just take it one fight at a time. I've got a hurdle next week that I've got to get over first. If I don't get over this hurdle, then I won't even get to the next hurdle. So I've got to think about Rodriguez. I know Kenshiro's fighting. I think he's fighting Sandoval now. In July 30th. So that'd be an interesting fight. He's got to get past him as well. He's not a walkover. So I try not to think too far ahead. Um, Obviously I want to fight for the world title. I want to get past Rodriguez and then fight Kenshiro. But they're two high hurdles, so I need to get over both of them first. The same with Sonny. I had to get over him to then get over Rodriguez. But it'd be a good run if I can get. I've had Sonny, Rodriguez, and I'd get past Kenshiro. It'd be a good run to a world title, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%, yeah, no, it would be. And obviously, you mentioned wanting to become world champion, and obviously, I'm guessing even beyond that, you're going to be looking at titles. I don't know if you'll be looking at a weight jump at any time in the future, but yeah, for your career, obviously, you did loads in the amateurs, and you're wanting to build a great professional career as well. How long? It might sound like a stupid question, but how long could you sort of see it going for? Have you almost set yourself a time frame in your mind as to like how much you're looking to achieve within a certain amount of time? Or
Nah, not at all.
no?
You know what I've learned, and not even in just boxing, but in life, anything can happen. Like I started boxing at 8. I had my first fight at like 18, 19. And then I went to the Olympics a couple years later. And then I went to another Olympics and I won a gold. So it's like, it's not set out how you think it's going to be. Things don't always work out. I think if you look too long term, it never goes to plan. I could say I want to retire at 35, and I could go to 40, or I could say I want to go to 35 and then retire after my next fight. Um, you never know what can happen. I just try and take it fight by fight. I live the life. I live clean. I take it serious. And yeah, I just improvise. I just go with it day by day. I just train, go to the gym, fight, every whatever 5 6 months, and yeah, I take it fight by fight because you never know what's around the corner. So hopefully I go until I'm at 40.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'd be
I
good.
doubt it though. I doubt it.
I was going to say that'd be good news for us as fans, but yeah, obviously you mentioned at the start that you've got a daughter, you've got a family as well. Is that something that you're also conscious of in terms of making time for them? Because I know life as a boxer, you're often having to take yourself away from that sort of family environment, especially when you're in camp. Is that something that you sort of think of as well, wanting to make time, for your daughter and your family?
Yeah, definitely. But you know what though, as boxers, I think we're selfish, man. Like I'm pretty selfish. And it's not in a bad way, but I think I've boxed what for 10 years now. I'm not just gonna just because you have a family, I can't just give it up and just okay, well now I'm just gonna stay at home. I have to keep going. It's given me a good life. It's given me everything I've got. So yeah, it's like I said, it does sound pretty selfish, but yeah, I think you have to be a bit selfish being a sportsman. Otherwise, I'd just sit at home and just watch my child grow up. And it'd be great to do that, but you can't live life like that. Obviously I'll come home on the weekends after my fight to have a bit of time off. We go away. We spend time together. So we do get the time together, and I do get time to be a dad and stuff. But yeah, when it's time to train, I got to go to Sheffield. I got to train. I'm away for the week. But hopefully after boxing, I can enjoy a bit more time with her.
Yeah, well, as you say there, with fighters, it's that mentality, isn't it? It's sort of, yeah, you
Yeah.
do have to be a bit selfish, but yeah, without sort of wanting to take up too much more of your time, Galal. As I say, I appreciate you giving me the
Nah, it's
interview,
cool.
but I was going to say you sort of mentioned at the start, with you campaigning in these lower divisions, naturally, it's going to be difficult for you to sort of get that recognition at times. In a from a hardcore fan perspective, we'll always see what you do and we'll kind of celebrate your success in that sense.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, I believe it was Jay Harris who retired recently, and he kind of said that he said being in those lower divisions, it was hard for him to sort of make the money that he wanted or get the fights that he wanted. For you now, obviously, Olympic gold medalist, knocker on the door for a world title. Would you say that you've got the recognition that you feel like you deserve?
Um, I don't know, mate. Maybe if I was a heavyweight, it might be a bit different. But yeah, like you mentioned Jay Harris earlier, he was a really good fighter. Maybe didn't get the recognition, but I just think like they're the cards we dealt with. Like it's like yourself. You do your job. There's some people out there that ain't got nothing. There's some people out there that have got everything. I'm just happy that I'm doing what I'm doing because I got to see what the other side was like at work and, making minimum wage. I'm not gonna cry now at being, you know, I'll do all right now. I'm comfortable. I box for a living. I get to do something I do that I love for a living. I got to travel the world. I became Olympic champion. Like to me, it's unbelievable. I don't care what other people think. To me, that's unbelievable. Olympic champion. I'm just a normal kid from, in the city of Birmingham. I became Olympic champion. I got invited to Windsor Castle to get an MBE. Like I know some people look at that and think, "Oh, bloody hell, here we go. He's bragging." But from where I'm from, we don't get them kind of things. So I've already won. Um, and for me to sit here and say, I wish I should get more recognition, I should get more money, people should talk about me more. That's just an egotistic thing. I don't really care about all that. Yeah, it's nice to have a bit more money and things like that. And it's nice when people know who you are. And obviously, people will know, well, less people know who I am. Um, More people would probably know if I was a heavyweight, but there's always what ifs, what ifs, what if I was this, what if I was that. I'm just happy to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm blessed. I can't keep looking for more. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm happy with what I've done, and they're the cards I'm dealt with. I'd rather be doing what I'm doing now than what I was doing 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. Just finally, you mentioned there again your job at the factory. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sort of interested. What did your sort of day-to-day life kind of look like back then?
The horrible. Well, I used to work a night shift.
All
So I
right,
used
yeah.
to go into work at like 8:30. I used to stay there till about 6:30, 7. Um, and yeah, I used to go and train at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening, sorry. Finish at about 7:30 and go straight to work. So I'd be knackered going to work to do night shift. And I remember saying to my coach, I'm probably gonna, leave boxing. I'm gonna give it another year and then I'm just gonna leave it. And I remember him telling me, "Oh, you can't leave it. You can go to the Olympics." And he was just, he's an old guy. Franco Sullivan, his name is. Anyone amateur boxing will know Franco Sullivan. And yeah, he just told me, "Hey, you can do this, you can do that." And I thought, "Nah, he's a crazy old geezer. He is. He's just saying it because I'm his fighter." But yeah, he was right with what he said, and yeah, it's all history now, and yeah, here I am.
Absolutely, no, it's a great story, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, obviously, got this next fight, and we're all looking forward to that. So, yeah, as I say, I won't take up any more of your time, Galal, but I
I
really
appreciate it.
appreciate you giving me the interview today. And as I say, look forward to seeing you back in action on Saturday.
Nah, anytime boxing. Always got time for boxing news. They always put you on a pedestal. Not like some other channels. You have to be a superstar for the other channels.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, anytime, any opportunity I get to interview someone of your caliber, Galal, I'll always pounce on that. But
Nah, I appreciate it.
yeah, as I say, it'll go in the magazine this week, so keep a lookout for that.
I will do. Thanks a lot for your time.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
See you in a
Hopefully,
bit.
speak to you soon. Cheers.
See you in a bit. Well.
See you. Bye.